We're live.
Hey, we're live. Hey, thanks everyone. I want to welcome Dr. Angela Lauria of the Author Incubator, who happens to be my favorite publisher, editor, mentor extraordinaire.
Aw, thank you. I am 2% having trouble hearing you.
Okay, so
But now I can't. Oh, you're going in and out, though. We're having some sort of internet love happening. The highs and lows. I think you're looking pixelated to me. Am I looking pixelated to you? These are the questions.
looks like it did. Hey, everybody.
There are 3 people watching us. If you are one of the people tuned in, can you go ahead and comment just so I know if you can hear me?
I lost Angela.
I can't.
Can anybody hear us?
We're getting
Ooh.
lots of likes, but I think we are not able to hear each other. There are 2 people there, I think, other than us. Oh, Robin just commented, Angela, you sound fine. Gina, I have nothing from. Yeah, so I feel this is my assumption is that I am fine and Gina's internet is not cooperating. Like, are you somewhere without good Wi-Fi? I'm hardwired right now.
That's
Thanks, Brienne, for letting us know, by the way.
yeah, it must
Internet.
I don't know what the deal is.
So,
I have nothing from Gina, from Brienne. Well, that's unfortunate. I don't have any control for what.
Sometimes the internet is a miracle, and sometimes it is not a miracle.
Nobody can hear us. Huh?
I think you sound like, when you're on a pixelated line. Like, it's my interpretation.
Yeah. I've lost you completely.
Now I see you perfectly. You're not pixelated anymore. Did you do something? You lost me? Because I see you perfectly. Yeah, Brienne's right. I see and hear you perfectly. I feel like we're so close. Gina came in. I'm still here.
Oh. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
I can't hear Angela.
You want me to drop out and drop back in? Hold on. How about now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can everybody hear us?
Yay!
Oh, it's lunchtime.
Happened?
Yeah, it's lunchtime here in Tucson. I'm guessing everybody's on the internet checking everything right when they're...
Well, whatever happened, it totally changed on a dime. Like I couldn't see you or hear you, and then all of a sudden you were there.
Yay! Alrighty, we're ready to rock and roll. So, Angela.
Yes, ask me something good.
Okay. So, hey, I loved this book. Of course, I've read the other two, but this one was my favorite, I have to say.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
My mom said it was her favorite too. This is it. Make them beg to publish your book.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it for so many reasons. So it feels a little different like your other two. Did it feel different to you?
Totally different.
How so?
Well, the other two were definitely process books. And this didn't have steps. Like I wasn't trying to teach a process. So that was definitely a big piece that was different. The other thing is it was a little more of a rant for me. So there's a bunch of things that I've been bursting at the seams to say. And I finally felt like I created a canvas where I could say them.
Yeah.
And with my other two books, I was like, these are the things I say. It wasn't like I'm dying to say them. It was like, these are the things I say to my clients. This is the stuff I want to say, but I never get to say because it's not a part of my program. It's a part of who I am, but I don't ever get to say this. So I was like,
I think I wrote to you, I said, it feels like to me like a fairy godmother with an attitude. So it was benevolent, but it was like, here, this is what you think, but this is the way it is, and this is why. And I still want all this love and joy for you with your book, but people, you got to get real. That's how it felt to me.
yeah, exactly. Totally.
So if that kind of a vein, when you're looking, now having written that book compared to the other two, like, does this one, what kind of different advice would you give somebody if you could be this kind of no holds barred kind of a...
Well, here's what I want to say is that the first two books, the goal of the first book was to get people to enroll in my program to get their book written.
Right.
The goal of my second book was to get people to want to continue under my leadership,
okay,
to work with me to build their movement. The goal of this book is to get this message out at a bigger level to the media. So I wanted to seem very mediagenic. So
okay.
I wanted people to look at the cover and think, wow, I'd really like her on our TV program. And I wanted people to listen to the message and be like, oh, she could be a total ball buster to have on our show. I bet she would be a great guest to have. I don't know that I would recommend the approach that I took necessarily if you were a new coach trying to get clients. Because it's pretty risky. Like, I kind of went off the deep end a couple times. I was like blowing up an industry that I'm supposed to be part of. So I'm like, here's what's wrong with 375 years of the publishing industry. Let me fix that for you.
Yeah.
So probably not the best first book, but I'm really thrilled with it for a third book.
So that brings up a good point. So book and whirling in their head, how do you help take a look at that?
I mean, you want to start by identifying what the purpose of the book is for you. My first two books were client conversion books. And the best way to write a client conversion book is to have a process you know works and document the process. And when people read your book, they'll see what it looks like for other people, and they'll decide if they want to do that too. This book is a platform speaking book, is what I call it. And it's basically you have to have one big message, and it has to be really controversial or really different in some way. And you need to tell that message 10 different ways through 10 different stories. So it's also why, if you notice, my first two books kind of look alike and this one looks different. It's because they're a different type. It's a different type of book, and it has a different outcome. So that's one of the things I would say to people before you start writing. Think about the outcome you want your book to have for you.
I know for me, I ended up getting. Mine was a book to get for my coaching platform. And I ended up getting a lot more, and I continue to get a lot more speaking gigs from that, which I've really enjoyed a lot more than I. Happens at all that people start and they get more than they wanted to?
Totally. So I have two things to say about that. One is, if you are very clear about your focus and you try and get your book to do one thing, it will do lots of things. If you try and get your book to do lots of things, it won't do anything very well. So that's one thing. The other thing is, you're such a beautiful storyteller, and the allegorical approach you use with your books makes your book a little different than a traditional client conversion book, which is just step, step, step in a little less of a dramatic way. So it's harder to imagine the person speaking. Your book makes it very clear for us to imagine you speaking, so it's a good way to get double duty out of your book.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I didn't think about it that way, but that's a really great observation. I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm totally like so-and-so in the book," because they identify with that. And even people that didn't have own businesses, so that was great. You know, a lot of my clients are kind of traditional brick and mortar people, and they have, industrial companies. What kinds of things would motivate somebody like that, do you think, to be able to have a book and to do well with it? What would be some of the benefits for somebody, for example? What would be the kinds of things they'd be looking for?
I mean, I think the big thing is the root of the word for author is the same root as the word for authority. So if you are looking for a differentiator, even if you make cogs, if you make widgets, even if you're doing something totally brick and mortar, you still have competitors and you still want a differentiator. And there is just it's not even fair. But when you write a book, people will see you as an authority. Yeah. And so if there is any differentiator that you have, writing a book on that differentiator will cement you as the authority.
That's a really great point. Because they're always looking for marketing strategies, the traditional things. And not that that's wrong, but I think that this is a great way to differentiate yourself differently than maybe a lot of the competitors in their field.
Oh, yeah.
So you've been you've been on a meteoric kind of ride this last couple of years. So how does that, when you think about yourself 2 years ago to now, what do you see yourself as having changed the most, do you think? Or has anything changed?
I know exactly where I was 2 years ago today. And I was very worried. 2 years and a week ago today, I had hired a salesperson. It was the first time I'd hired a salesperson. And I remember thinking, I really have to start building my team because I can't do everything myself. I was pretty much a one-woman show 2 years ago. And so I started building my team. And I knew it was going to grow, but I definitely Uh, yeah, I think the big thing I know now that I didn't know 2 years ago was like, wow, nothing's going to look like what you think it looks like. I was living in a much smaller house, and I would have guessed 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I started looking for a new house. I thought I would get a slightly bigger house with a bigger living room so I could have my events in the living room or the dining room at my new house. Like I thought life would be more incremental. Like 2 years ago, I was flying economy, and maybe I would have thought like occasionally I might have the opportunity to fly first class. But I would have never thought that 2 years from now would be like, obviously I only fly first class. Like there's so many things that have changed so fast. Like, so I said I was hiring my first person 2 years ago. We now have like over 30 people on the team, 19 full-time W-2 employees, and like another 10 or something part-timers, 12 part-timers that are 1099 employees. Like, I guess I just could have never guessed how fast it would go, but once you see it, things can go really fast.
How's that impacted you personally? Here's how it's impacted me personally. I remember hating George Bush. I think it was the second one who said this. George W. Bush was the second one, right? And he had this really dumb speech he gave where he said, "I'm the decider." And I was like, that is the stupidest thing a human could say out loud. And now I totally get it. I take back every bad thing I ever said. I can see like all of my past bosses that I called assholes. I apologize to all of them too. In fact, I do some of that in my new book, Make 'em Beg to Be Your Publisher, because I was reflecting on my bosses from a company called Aperture, and I was like, oh, that's what they meant. I spent 2 years arguing with them, and now I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. So there's so much more perspective I have now as a human. I think I'm much more forgiving because so much makes sense now. I'm like, oh, yeah, I was pretty impatient, or I definitely didn't get what my boss was trying to do, or that wasn't helpful. I totally see why that wasn't helpful. So, I have a whole new perspective. Much more forgiving, much more generous with my ability to see other people's perspectives. So you've published now almost 300, 200 and something, almost 300 books, right? So with your own journey, and now having seen so many of your authors go through their own journey, their own journey like that, how do you help them now that you have your own experience through this and you have your authors that do that well? How do you help them start getting in line with what could be in their future?
I think that's the main thing I do. So the first, last, and middle thing I do is like, imagine that your book is as successful as you want it to be. Mm-hmm. How are you different? How are your clothes different? How are your glasses different? How is the furniture in your house different? How are your shoes different? Because seeing all that stuff, I remember the first time I saw a bigger house. I was in a house that is valued at something like $900,000. And 2 years ago, I was able to see myself in a $2 million house. I was like, I could live there. I saw the house and I was like, I could live there. So I would like anybody who's listening, I would say like, think about a house twice your size. You don't have to move. I didn't move into that $2 million house. But think about a house twice your size. Go pull up in the driveway and park there. Hopefully it's an empty house. But pull up in the driveway or pull up on the road and like imagine how your life is different in a house twice as big. And then go to a house that's 10 times as big and pull up in front of that house. How is your life different? How is your staff different? Are you still cutting your lawn when you go to that place that's 10x the size? Are you still wearing the same clothes? Do you shop at the same grocery store? Do you have somebody shop for you? Like, what changes
Right.
10x the size. And then here's the crazy thing, start living that way now.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I mean, I think that's one of the things, especially it's one of the things that I found, and you and I've had this conversation, when you start adding those key people to your team, because you can't be the person that's doing 5 jobs anymore, right?
Yeah, as soon as you see like, oh, a house 10x the size of mine is actually a horse farm, 300 acres. Okay, well, if you're on a horse farm of 300 acres, you're probably not, mowing the grass yourself.
Right.
Are you feeding the horses? Do you have horses? Do you have a horse caretaker? What's your staff look like? What's the budget for that staff? Like, okay, now let's go back to your house, and you're spending 2 hours on Saturday stressing about mowing the lawn. Then you're spending 15 minutes mowing it, and then you're spending another 2 hours recovering from the emotional toll of mowing the lawn. How about instead we just hire someone? Do you suddenly have that $50?
Yeah.
To have someone mow your lawn? All of a sudden it's like, oh, it's only $50 to have your lawn mowed? It was $50 before, but like it was costing you so much more than $50 to stress out about it, to feel guilty, to hope your partner didn't notice, then to like have to feel like you had to recover. Like it's costing you so much more than $50. Just pay someone $50.
Well, and with somebody like you or a lot of my clients, there's certain things in their business, they're the only people that can do those things. And so if they're running to the back of the building to ship something out, or they feel compelled to, straighten all the pencils on the front desk, it tends to, the money that's doing, there's no way that can ever come back, no matter how much you're customer centered, there's no way that could come back to help you.
Totally.
Are we getting the hook sign from Robin? He told me 20 minutes and we kind of got...
I know, I just looked down, I just got a text from him. He's like, you got to wrap it up.
So tell people, I'm going to make sure I put a link to your book in the notes when we're done. If somebody's thinking about, I think I saw this on one of the other broadcasts, you put together a little mini class for people, right?
I did. So here's the deal. I want people to know, Make 'em Beg to Publish Your Book is really in part about getting a 6-figure book contract. Because that's what a lot of people say they want. They say that they want a major book contract from a major publisher, which is fantastic. And by the way, you can find the book on Amazon.com. However, there is another way to give yourself a 6-figure book contract, and that's to use your book to generate 6 figures in income. So I created a 19-minute class for you to learn how to give yourself a 6-figure book contract. It's called quartermillionbook.com, quartermillionbook.com. You can go there, take the 19-minute class, and you will learn how you can have a 6-figure book contract that doesn't rely on a traditional publisher. You'll also learn from the book that you could find on Amazon how you can get a traditional publisher if that's the route you want to go.
Awesome. All right. I know you got a busy schedule. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's so awesome to chat with you and to you guys. And I'll check the thread. So if you do have questions as you're watching this, feel free to drop them in the thread, and I'm happy to comment. So,
all right. Have an awesome day. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Yeah.